Woman allegedly gang raped, tortured, and paraded through streets. See, this is from New Delhi, India. Police in the Indian capital have arrested 11 people, including 9 women, after the alleged brutal gang rape and torture of a young woman that included her being paraded through the streets and humiliated. The incident took place on Wednesday in East Delhi's Kasturba Nagar area as the nation celebrated Republic Day, marked by a grand military parade through central Delhi. The woman, 20, was allegedly abducted and raped by a group of men in a revenge attack. The victim's head was shaved, face blackened, and a garland of shoes put around her neck as she was hit and paraded through the streets in East Delhi. Video of that part of the abuse went viral, causing widespread outrage. It shows a group of women forcing the victim to walk around and hitting her while onlookers cheer. The victim's family has said her attackers are connected to a family in which a teenage boy died by suicide last November. They say the boy was stalking and pursuing the victim for a long time, but when his advances were rejected, he took his life. The woman is married and has a 3-year-old son. He fell in love with her. He used to keep calling and asking her to leave her husband and be with him. She would always refuse. The victim's sister told an Indian news outlet. After the boy's suicide, his family had reportedly threatened the woman several times, prompting her to move recently. The Delhi police said they were investigating the case and more arrests are expected soon. The victim's family has been given police protection. Delhi's chief minister, Arvind Kejriwal, called the attack shameful and urged strict action against the perpetrator. The alleged attack in the Indian capital is the latest in a string of rapes and part of wider plague of sexual violence against Indian women. Now, this article goes on to describe what happened in last year. A 34-year-old woman in Mumbai died after being raped and brutally tortured, bringing back memories of the 2012 Delhi rape and murder of a young medical student, which sparked massive protests and made international headlines. Despite recently tightened laws against rape, India has struggled to address its severe crisis of sexual violence against women. More than 32,000 rapes were reported in 2019, the most recent year for which government data is available. That's nearly 4 rapes every hour over the course of the year on average, and those numbers represent only the cases that are reported to authorities and only rapes, not other sexual violence. So let me just comment here. I know in the past, dealing with topics on rapes in India, people would comment that, well, the United States has more more rapes than India, what have you, and they go by per capita. How India is more populous in the United States. And but the thing is, in the United States, women are not really fearful to go to the police to report rape. You know, I mean, it's like it's the duty. And if anything, if a woman reports rape in the United States and the police make fun of her, forget it. You know, that could be like the end of the career for the police. You know, so it's not. But whereas in India, if a woman reports rape, see what happens is that they can make fun of her. I'll say, well, you know, you were dressed a certain way, this and that, and so forth. That's the problem. So you can have a lot of stuff going on in India that women are more reluctant, except when it's extreme, like in this case here. And in this case here, this woman was married with a 3-year-old son, and the teenager, the guy who tried to court her, he tried several times asking her to leave her husband, you know, and she refused. And then he killed himself. But what's so striking about this story is not so much the rape, but the fact that family were outraged at her, that he ended up taking his life because she refused to commit adultery and leave her husband and go, you know, with him. That's what's so shocking about the story. The rape is bad enough, and what they did to her, she was like tar and feathered, if I may use that term, parading her through the streets like she did something terrible, when all she did was say, no, I'm not going to leave my husband, you know, and my 3-year-old son for you, you know. And the guy was a teenager, so he killed himself. So the family, his family, are trying to blame her, and this is the kind of punishment she gets for refusing. So you can imagine a woman being raped in India and going to the police, the kind of treatment she would get. So when people say, oh, well, you know, you look at Wikipedia and you see there are rapes in the United States, per capita it comes out more than in India or what have you. Well, you know what? Most of the rapes in the United States don't have the kind of violence that you find in India, you know. I mean, it's one thing somebody's raping somebody, but the kind of violence and like beating somebody to death and so forth. Yeah, there was I think it was last week or a couple of weeks ago, there was a man who was caught by the police raping a woman in Manhattan, and the woman was leaving some, I think she worked in a Chinese restaurant and so forth, and the guy grabbed her as she was passing and dragged her under a scaffolding or what have you. You see? Now, he wasn't beating up the woman, he was raping the woman. That's bad enough. And the police were there in time, you see. But these kind of stuff, like you hear out of India, like that happened to a girl, I think, the medical student, I think it was 2014. She died. They're very, very violent. I mean, it's like, okay, and not only that, sometimes there are gangs of men who rape these women, like in this article here, you see. So it's very shocking what goes on in India, and they need to, it's a societal problem, and I think mothers got to teach their sons, you just can't go about treating women that way, you know, regardless. And another thing too, India has too many men over women. That's another problem, you know. That's not the case in the United States. As you see, the United States usually has a lot of wars ever since I've been a teenager. The United States is always involved in some kind of war. So a lot of our men are killed off. So you create an imbalance here. So where I live, you have a lot more women to one man. So that's not a problem here, where I am.